Hello and welcome to the Scattered Abroad Joint Podcast. This is Season 5, Episode 8, and we have another exciting opportunity to discuss miracles from the Old Testament. We've been doing a series on the plagues that we started last week, or last month I should say, and this is now part 2 of the 10 plagues. To my right, your left, is Chase Green, host of the Everyday Christian podcast, as well as overseer of the Father Time podcast with Matthew McBrayer. And also to my left, we have Jameson Stewart, who works specifically with our blogging team in the Centered on Christ and SAN blogs and all of the other wonderful stuff. They're both ministers of the gospel, graduates of the Memphis School of Preaching, where we're privileged to be a work of MSOP. And today we're going to get started with the next 2 miracles. We're talking about lice, and we're also going to continue with the 4th plague of flies. Now, I'm going to ask Jameson to read our text. It's Exodus 8, 16 through 19, and verses 20 through 32. And then immediately after that, we're going to let Chase geek out and show you guys what's what, because he has done the work. Jameson, read the word of God to us now.
Exodus 8, 16 through 19. So the Lord said to Moses, say to Aaron, stretch out your rod and strike the dust of the land, so that it may become lice throughout all the land in Egypt. And they did so. And Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod and struck the dust of the earth, and it became lice on man and beast. All the dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. Now the magicians so worked with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. So there were lice on man and beast. Then the magician said to Pharaoh, this is the finger of God. But Pharaoh's heart grew hard, and he did not heed them, just as the Lord had said. All right, Chase.
Like you said, Michael, when I read this, and I've read through this several times, of course, but recently when I was preparing for this, I got to thinking, that's a lot of dust. It's a lot of dust. Specifically, I looked up how much dust there is on planet Earth, and according to scientists, they think approximately 15,000 tons of dust rain down on the Earth every year. And there are approximately 5,200 tons of dust settled on Earth's surface. Now, according to my calculations, sorry guys, according to my calculations, which math was not my best subject, but Egypt is 1.01 million square kilometers, according to Google. The Earth is 510 million square kilometers.
Don't make him convert it.
So 1 million kilometers compared to 510 million kilometers. That means that Egypt is about 0.19% of the Earth's surface, if I got my conversion factor correct. I'm not sure about that.
Sounds right.
We'll go with it. So you multiply 0.19% times 5,200 tons of dust on the Earth's surface, you come up with 988 tons of dust in Egypt. Hang on, we're not done. So I suspect...
That's what I'm afraid of.
I suspect that Egypt is a lot dustier than your average country because, well, it's desert. So no telling how many tons of dust were present in Egypt. And verse number 17, I believe it is, says that all of the dust in Egypt became lice. We're talking a lot of lice.
The more you know. Wow. I'm both impressed.
It's a lot of research.
And concerned and wanting to check on Lindsay and see if you're okay. I mean, that is impressive to sit there. How long did that take you?
About 10 minutes.
Okay. Well,
a lot of thinking.
Wait, 10 minutes? No way. There's 10.
It's amazing what you can do with ChatGPT nowadays.
It took me 10 minutes to get on ChatGPT, and there you go. Okay, so...
And I'm out. I'm out, guys.
Chase is exiting the podcast now. He'll be back next year. We think about these locusts and the magicians, when we think about some takeaways from the text here, this is one where God does not give a warning to Pharaoh. We'll see later with the plagues that we discuss later on this season that God does give a warning that, hey, this is going to happen if you don't let my people go. And Pharaoh, unfortunately, is unwilling to listen. And yet this occasion, he says, just go strike the dust of the land, let it become lice. And I have had lice before. Some translations call these gnats, but lice are something that is not fun to have. It's a pesky pest. I'll get it right eventually.
Right.
And I cannot imagine the facial expressions when, what was that number again? 1 billion something?
900 something tons of
988
dust.
tons of dust
Yes.
turns into light. If that's not a good scene for a horror movie, I don't know what is. And yet, the second thing is that the magicians couldn't do anything to duplicate it. And yet these are the ones that are often being treated as, you're our answer man. You can tell us and help us with anything we want to know. And yet here they even say in verse 19, this is the finger of God. This is God, not us. We can't do this. There has to be somebody higher than us. Well, what about the purpose of this miracle? What is the purpose of the miracle of the lice, and before we get into the miracle of the flies?
Well, I think really kind of emphasizing the connection there with the magicians is like, look, this is God. God has done this. It kind of reminds me, thinking forward to the book of Daniel, in Daniel chapter, I believe it's chapter 2, when Nebuchadnezzar wants the wise men, the magicians also, to tell him, no, I don't want you to just tell me what the dream means, but actually tell me what my dream was. And they tell him, look, only God can do that. It's a very similar parallel to what we have here, is they're telling Pharaoh, look, we can't do this.
Right.
Only God can do this. So I think at least part of what this miracle is it's really emphasizing that this is something that only God can do.
Yeah. I was just going to say infinite power. I mean, you're talking about dust, microscopic many times, and then lice are very, very tiny creatures. And so you're taking microscopic dust in extremely large amounts and you're converting it into tons and tons and tons of lice. And I just can't imagine the horror of the Egyptians experiencing that, and itching just had to be terrible. But it shows you the infinite power of God, that he can take, he can individually measure out, and we don't know exactly the process, but measuring out all these different dust particles and turning them in each one to lice. That's pretty amazing to think about.
Well, and you think the assault that this is also on the magicians, who work and work and work, and they can't do it. And it reminds me today that though we're not going to have the ability to have God strike the dust and turn it into lice, we have people who say, I can perform miracles and I can do these things. And they're modern day magicians in the sense that that's what they perform and profess they can do, is a miraculous healing or a miraculous showing. And yet when you ask them to do it and they can't do it, all of a sudden it's your fault. Right. You just don't have enough faith. If you really wanted to be saved from this, horrible disease, your faith would be strong enough and it would take care of it. Logically, that doesn't work, first of all, because if I have enough faith to go to you, that should be enough to get me saved from this disease or healed. But two, faith is not the precursor for when a miracle is going to be, workable. There were times where miracles like Exodus chapter 4, we've been talking about these miracles with the purpose and all that. God gave Moses not parlor tricks, not some type of sleight of hand, but the ability to actually take that rod and cast it onto the ground and it become a serpent. And it was real because he ran from it.
Right.
And he wrote that. That had to be demoralizing to write in there, and I ran from the snake. That was my own staff 10 seconds ago. But all of those were done, God said, to confirm that this is his messenger.
Yep.
And therefore, there are times where faith is not going to be even existent when a miraculous power is going to be showcased. And yet, these magicians had a greater power that they were working against, that, to their credit, they at least said, this is God. This is not us. There's no way there's any explanation other than the Almighty. And so I think that's kind of the purpose behind what is happening, why it was being done, is to showcase the Almighty's power. What about the meaning of the miracle here before we jump into the flies? That sounded like we're going to jump into a bat of flies, and I don't intend to do that. But what about the meaning of the miracle of the lice?
I think that as we're seeing some of these miracles taking place with these plagues, the land of Goshen is spared, and that's where the Israelites were. I think that there is perhaps some symbolism here dealing with the fact that God's people are separate, and they're because they're God's chosen people, and if they're living right, faithful, then they're going to be spared from these plagues, just as God's people today, if we're living faithfully, we're going to be spared from the consequences of sin. I think that's some of the meaning that's, kind of throughout these plagues.
Absolutely. Jameson?
Yeah, just thinking about what he said, I guess takes my mind to Romans chapter 5, verse 9 and 10, where it talks about basically through what Jesus has done in shedding his blood for us, he, in addition to justifying us, also spares us from the wrath of God. So there's this distinction being made. These are God's people. These are not. And
right.
So they are facing the finger of God, this great power of God, the consequences of rejecting him, when it didn't have to be that way.
Yeah. The finger of God, that kind of jogged my memory with Daniel when...
Chapter 5.
Yes. Yep. When the handwriting on the wall, it was literally the fingers of God writing on the wall. And we have a saying for that. The handwriting on the wall is that, punishment's coming or whatnot. And so just the power of God, the handwriting on the wall of God showing, look, your punishment is coming. And if God says punishment's coming, unless you repent and you don't repent, then it's coming. You can bank on it.
Well, let's jump in and talk about the flies for a little bit here. And I expect the same level of math on this occasion as you just did, knowing that I can see your notes.
Yeah, let me go get my calculator. I'll be right back.
Could you imagine if he was like, actually, there were 3.2 billion flies. I have some of them.
Right.
They're pinned into the museum in our local community there in Oklahoma. Why would they have that? Anyways, read the passage for us, Jameson, verses 20 through 32.
Yep. And the Lord said to Moses, rise early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh as he comes out to the water. Then say to him, thus says the Lord, let my people go, that they may serve me. Or else, if you will not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies on you and your servants, on your people, and into your houses. The houses of the Egyptians shall be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground on which they stand. And in that day I will set apart the land of Goshen, in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there, or in order that you may know that I am the Lord in the midst of the land. I will make a difference between my people and your people. Tomorrow this sign shall be. And the Lord did so. Thick swarms of flies came into the house of Pharaoh, into his servants' houses, and into all the land of Egypt. The land was corrupted because of the swarms of flies. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, go sacrifice to your God in the land. And Moses said, it's not right to do so, for we would be sacrificing the abomination of the Egyptians to the Lord our God. If we sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians before their eyes, then will they not stone us? We'll go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord our God as he will command us. So Pharaoh said, I will let you go, that you may sacrifice to the Lord your God in the wilderness, only you shall not go very far away. Intercede for me. Then Moses said, indeed, I am going out from you, and I will entreat the Lord that the swarms of flies may depart tomorrow from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people. But let not Pharaoh deal deceitfully any more in not letting the people go to sacrifice to the Lord. So Moses went out from Pharaoh and entreated the Lord. And the Lord did according to the word of Moses. He removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people. Not one remained. But Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time also, neither would he let the people go.
Pretty good reading.
Oh, well, thank you.
So how many flies were there, Jameson?
There was at least 2.
At least 2. Could you have 2 flies wreaking havoc on each other?
It's flies
Just
in the
these
plural.
2.
So at least 2.
So I don't have any calculations for you this time, but what is the most annoying part of a backyard barbecue?
Yeah.
The flies.
The flies.
Right? And so imagine innumerable swarms of flies, 2 times infinity.
Yeah, they're not the type of animal like a dog you can eventually get through. No, go away, go away.
Right.
A cat you could eventually get through after kicking it across the way. Go away, go away. A fly, that old shoe fly don't bother me. I don't know who came up with that, but they don't know how flies work, because it doesn't matter how many times you swat at that fly, unless you end its life, it is coming back for more.
And then its cousin or its brother shows up. And one of the things that we haven't talked about, I don't think, is that with the lice and the flies, think about all the diseases that they carry too, and the filth that is brought with them. This is just tremendously difficult situation for the Egyptians.
Well, let's think about some of the purpose of this miracle. It seems to be, that we talked about the ones with the lice. There's no warning given. Then Moses is told, now go warn him. And on a scale of lice to flies, evidently, the warning for the flies is you're not going to like this. If you don't let my people go, full of swarms of flies, and also the ground on which they stand, like literally every single bit of your life will be covered head to toe flies. He gives this warning, and doesn't matter. Pharaoh just, I'm not doing it, not going to happen. And so the flies come, and finally, Pharaoh says, okay, go ahead and go. You can do this, you can sacrifice, it's okay, it's fine. And he says, I'll let you go, you can sacrifice, you don't go far away, just intercede for me. And yet Pharaoh dealt deceitfully. He lied. Now, Pharaoh was not a politician in the sense that we have today, but this is absolutely as close to being a politician as Pharaoh can possibly get in Old Testament times. How many times do we hear people say, if you elect me, I will do this, or I will do that. And then they get elected or they get reelected, and what ends up happening? Hardly ever do they actually follow through on a campaign promise. Mm-hmm. And this is something that is serious. They are trying to get their people to go, and Pharaoh's conceding, it seems. Well, you can at least go sacrifice to God. No, you can't. Not allowed to. Not going to happen. And all of that for what? For flies to be a huge problem and for there to be even more plagues that are on their way. I mean, we're only on the fourth plague. There are 6 more that are going to come. And as we notice and looking at this, they get increasingly worse.
Yeah.
Obviously water to blood is not enjoyable, but it's also not something that is going to absolutely just destroy your entire nation. You can get over it. You can get past it. But as we're going now and we get into what you just said, the diseases, all of the problems that they have, everything that we're talking about is all because Pharaoh was so stinking stubborn and would not let them go. And all he had to do was let them go. And it reminds me a lot, and I know that, we'll talk about this more next month as well. Children who want something so bad, and it doesn't matter. You cannot reason with them. My daughter, we were at Chick-fil-A recently, not a sponsor, and they were drinking their milk, and they were almost going to finish it before our food even came. And I said, hey, give me your milks, and we'll wait until your breakfast comes, and then you can have your milk back. You would have thought I'd taken a 2x4 upside the back of her head. I mean, she was so screaming, crying, so upset. I can't sit down with her and reason as she's almost 3. Now, honey, in just a few moments, you will be privileged to have the opportunity to partake in your scramble bowl that we bought you. She doesn't get that. Right. She wants it now, and it doesn't matter. That's what it needs to be. Pharaoh acts like a child.
Yep.
I don't care that there's someone who is higher, who has already performed 3 miracles, plagues. That's also the funniest thing is these aren't called miracles necessarily. They're miraculous, but they're called plagues, which means they're not a good thing to enjoy or to have happen to you. Most of the miraculous power we do end up talking about with God is often pleasant and the things that he's able to perform. But this season we've noticed quite a bit of episodes where God has shown and flexed his muscles and said, you're not going to like this. If you just would listen, this won't happen. But Pharaoh acts like a child. What else kind of comes to y'all's minds about the flies and the purpose, the meaning, all that good stuff?
Well, you think about just kind of what you said about God flexing his muscles. The Exodus and bringing the children of Israel out of Egyptian captivity in the New Testament, sort of pointing forward to how God delivers us and sets us free from sin, from the captivity, the bondage of sin. And so you think about the power of God to do that. As great and as powerful as this is, in many ways it's pointing forward to an even greater demonstration of God's power in setting us free from sin through his son, Jesus Christ. So I guess I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's a great way to put it, is God is flexing his muscles here because he is very powerfully showing I can and will save you. And he has to show power in doing that. And so that's kind of something that really stands out to me about this.
I go back to the stubbornness of Pharaoh, like you were talking about, and I try to put myself in people's shoes when I'm reading about them in the Bible, and I'm thinking, okay, how many plagues would it have taken for me? And I think we would like to think after the first or second we would come to our senses, but
Right.
there's a tremendous amount of stubbornness on the part of Pharaoh here, and it's mind-boggling that he was so willing to use the expression to cut off his nose to spite his face. And I also think about, he was the leader of his people. How much trouble they went through as a people because he would not capitulate. He would not give in. He could have spared his people as the leader of his people from so much trouble if he would have just humbled himself and said, okay, you're good to go.
Well, and that sparked a thought for me. Pharaoh is going to later on not only make this problem a persistent problem with the plagues continuing, but when he finally has had enough and he says, okay, I'm done. I'm going to go. I'm going to move this. I'm going to do everything the way that it needs to be. He essentially turns into an understanding of, I'm going to destroy my nation. Because that's what he does in chapter 14. He single-handedly destroys everything that makes a nation function. Now, the annihilation that occurs here was not something where Egypt ceased to exist, but they certainly lost. Just think about these three things. They lost their king in Exodus 14. He died. They lost their military. They all perished in the Red Sea. And they lost their dominance over the Israelites, their workforce. If tomorrow morning we were given the news that all of our military, all of our main workforce, and our leader died in one night, in one moment, it would be one of the most terrifying and scary moments in our history, because all the other nations are looking at us and thinking, what? You're ripe for attack now. We can come after you now. We can go and get you now because you have nothing. And that's Pharaoh's hubris and his arrogance led to Egypt going down a path that took a while to come back from. And even though they've recovered to where they're still functioning, they're still working, Egypt is not necessarily one of the greatest places to go and to go and visit and to go and not many people are saying Egypt's got to be my number one destination for vacation. I see more people talking about how Egypt is frustrating and annoying with all the different people who try to scam you into bringing things in and all this type of stuff. Egypt could have been thriving like they did in Genesis had they just stuck with God. And I think we talked about this, and we're running close to out of time. We don't have a lot of time to continue on this point, but it bears repeating. Daniel shows how even in a time when ungodly people are ruling, you can bring God to the conversation. And the Lord's diet is instituted in chapter 1. People are praying to God in chapter 3. Mm-hmm. You've got the God you mentioned on, I think, the next month's episode that we've already recorded, that Daniel's the only one who can say what the dream is because he has God with him. All of that. And by the end of chapter 6, an entire new kingdom is now saying, it's the God of Israel that you need to be listening to.
Right.
That's how this should have gone. But Pharaoh was not willing. Yep. And he destroyed everything he had going for him because he failed to realize a lot what Nebuchadnezzar failed to realize. God rules in the kingdoms of men, not Pharaoh. Not a president, it's God. God's in charge. And we need to realize that God has all power and authority to do what he sees fit. Guys, do you have anything else that you would like to throw in before we throw it to the outro?
How much time do we have?
A minute and 30 seconds before I need to say.
I'll save it, but I'll just allude to it. The next episode that I'm going to be on the plagues, I'd like to talk about the writings of Ipuwer. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but he was an Egyptian wise man, or whatever you want to call it. It's Ipuwer. He wrote something called The Admonitions of an Egyptian Sage. And I've got some quotes I want to read next time that I'll be on one of these episodes. And it's very fascinating. They line up just about perfectly with what the Bible says. And it's from the Egyptian point of view of, hey, this is what This is how we're in so much ruin, like you talked about, because of some plagues that had happened. Very, very fascinating stuff. But I'm going to talk about that hopefully in a couple of episodes.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, we're thankful to you for being with us again this month. We are looking forward to next month where Jameson will be back on with us, and we'll have Drew Suttle show up and be a part of our podcast on the 10 Plagues Part 3. Remember, 416 Ministries deserves a massive shout out for sponsoring this season and supporting us with getting us some new polos. We're grateful for the work that they're doing. Wayne's not on this episode, but when he is, he'll be glad to tell you all of the information about 416. We'll put everything that we can in the show notes. Don't forget to go to the show notes for our link tree, social media links. Our website is now msop.org. We're grateful to have the opportunity to be a work of the Memphis School of Preaching. Great place to learn how to preach the gospel. If you've enjoyed this season and what the panelists have been able to bring out, I think you would like the Memphis School of Preaching, and you would enjoy the 2-year journey that would be, because all of our hosts and all of our panelists for this season are graduates of MSOP. So we were all trained by the very same men, same style, and we all have a different and unique approach. Chase bringing out the billions of, lies that were there, and all of the things that are going on with that. That's something that I may have never thought to do. Jameson may have never thought to do that either, but Chase was able to bring that perspective to the table. And if you like stuff like that, you will love the Memphis School of Preaching. Until next month, take care and God bless.